The Alien Wars? Yeah, I've heard of them. Might say I did my part. Blasted the alien invaders back to hell 3 separate times. Probably one of the hardest battles I've ever fought. And this is coming from a guy who loves old school arcade style games and appreciates retro difficulty. But Contra games are another beast. They don't make them like they used to. Brutally hard arcade shooters where only the best and most skilled are able to beat the game, much less complete it. So you're pulling me back, huh? Another episode of The Completionist where I complete another game from the New Game Plus list, huh? You wanna find out more about that? Click the link in the box down below. But I hate to say it, Frazier, it's impossible.
Why is that? We really need you to complete.
No, it can't be done. I hung those guns up long ago. Besides, when I completed that game, it was between me and a good friend. A man with a plan. A man from the mysterious land of Canada. Canada, Frazier! Unless we can use the power of the internet. Proton Jon?
That's right, you beautiful bastard. I'm in.
Let's go. There was a time when side-scrolling shooters were limited to arcades. Home consoles just couldn't handle the amount of action. Though the straightforward action of the Contra series did eventually find its way to the NES, the arcade port suffered from some graphical downgrades. It would be several long years before another alien invasion touched down on a more powerful system.
The more powerful Super Nintendo reinvigorated not just the idea of arcade ports to home consoles, but the whole concept of action-packed high-octane gameplay. There was this trend in the early 90s of home console games being slower and more strategic, which honestly meant this was the perfect time for an arcade favorite to make a stunning, neon bullet-filled reemergence.
So, Contra 3, The Alien Wars, obviously isn't the first Contra. It might not even be the best Contra. But this installment in Konami's legendary side-scrolling shooter franchise is the one that took this already over-the-top series into new heights of ridiculousness.
That's right, Gerard. Contra has always been crazy. It's a series about alien invaders that are trying to destroy Earth, and they can only be repelled by bad dudes with big guns and even bigger muscles. In the case of Contra 3, though, the plot is simpler than ever and really just throws players right into the action.
It's the year 2636, and the opening cutscene, a city is reduced to rubble. A giant face from outer space has arrived, and now the alien wars begin. But these two rad dudes with amazing headbands aren't going to take the conquering of Earth lying down. With 2 more classic lines, the stage is set. It's time for revenge. Let's attack aggressively. Honestly, those 2 lines say more about this 2D action game than you might think. It's permission to shoot anything that moves on screen, and also lets the player know that leaning on the fire button is the only way through. A succinct story and run-and gun action have always been staples for Contra.
But Contra 3 is more ambitious than just any other side-scrolling shooter. The game was built specifically with the Super Nintendo in mind. It wasn't a port of an arcade classic like the first couple of games were on the NES. This baby took advantage of the power of the Super Nintendo with better music and much better animated sprites. And then of course, who could forget? Mode 7! The Alien Wars is full of graphical tricks and wizardry that set it apart from other games, even now. The way the view shifts to top-down instead of side-scrolling for a couple levels is just as cool as it was in our first playthrough.
Mode 7 also makes the game feel even more over the top. Making it through the first stage, playing your normal side-scrolling non-stop blasting Contra is one thing, but then to be thrown into an entirely new way to play than expected is awesome. It's like player whiplash, and even though a version of this kind of gameplay appeared in Super Contra, it isn't as fleshed out as it is right here. Players can even choose if they want to play on the same screen or split screen on the Mode 7 levels. I should say, our first playthrough of the game was on a Super Nintendo in the same room couch co-op style. This time, because of, well, you know, we used Parsec to connect over long distances. The original video was a lot more fun to make because of Contra 3's co-op, and we wanted to recreate that right here.
During the development of Contra 3: The Alien Wars, game director Nobuya Nakazato talked about how he always thought that Contra had kind of a low-budget action movie vibe to it. But with this game, he really went all out, amping up the action to a degree that, up to this point, none of the other games could ever really touch. It's not quite full of campiness, but it's also not exactly gritty action drama either. Instead, it's a nice split between the two. The art direction as well leans even harder into the weird 80s action movie vibe of the original game, but it doesn't exactly pull any punches with alien body horror stuff either. The game itself is more action, more violence, and more dudes riding across the screen on missiles than you've ever seen in any other game to this point.
Contra 3 throws curveballs at players at every turn. This is the Contra that established several elements that would go on to be staples in future installments, regardless of how successful they were. Climbing walls? This game. Hanging from a ceiling? Yup. Holding two weapons and swapping between them at the touch of a button? It's right here. Bombs that flash to blow up every enemy on screen? Hell yeah. Flip jumps? Okay, flip jumps are in the series from the very beginning, but still, if you think of Contra and the image that pops in your head is dudes hanging from missiles and shooting flamethrowers at everything, that's from this game.
Contra 3 very much adheres to the, if it ain't broke, don't fix it strategy of game development. Starts off as organized chaos, but by the time players are good enough at the game to play through it on hard mode, it just looks plain ridiculous on screen. And in this kind of game where one-hit kills and limited continues are still the norm, you've got to be on your toes throughout.
That said, instead of playing through Contra 3 separate times like I did originally, we're just doing a one-time playthrough on hard, straight through, co-op mode. We've done it before and we'll do it again. What do you say, John? Two old soldiers being pulled back out of retirement for one last job? That has a nice ring to it, wouldn't you say?
Definitely does, my dude. Man, if this were in person right now, I would totally do the Predator handshake with you, but as it stands, I guess I'll just settle for a nice high five.
Not quite as epic, but you know what? I'll take it. Now, I remember playing this game together over a weekend during SGC in 2013. We blasted through all three difficulties, easy, normal, and hard, all in two-player mode. I think one thing we can both agree on is this. This game is crazy hard, tough as hell. Something that I learned to be grateful for is that John here is just as much of a monster as I am at this game, because to complete Contra 3, you need a partner who is not only skilled, but on the same wavelength as you.
To master this game, there are certain qualities that are absolutely necessary. You need a dedication to perfection, you need patience in the face of unrelenting difficulty, and of course, you need a little self-love. Gerard and I have known each other for years and have fortunately come to terms with a lot of the sticking points for getting through a tough game like this. On the first point, there really is no getting around it. Players just have to get good at the game. Doing that requires memorization and cat-like reflexes. Even bumping up your starting lives up to 7, it is still way too easy to use up all of your continues. When bullets are flying every which way, if you aren't able to read a pattern and react in time, you're gonna die instantly. Muscle memory is the key to victory here, and the only way to build that up is by working out. Although in this case, you don't need a dumbbell, you just need a controller to play the game a lot.
Between the two of us, we've played a ton of Contra 3. Even after years apart and not touching this game for a long period, we've crashed through it enough times that enemy movement patterns and boss attack sequences are second nature. Without that, it's an easy trip to Game Over Town. Is that a real town? I think so.
This game has always been one of the hardest in the franchise. Just like Gerard though, I've been determined to get good at Contra 3 since I was a kid. And man, is there so much satisfaction in getting that final boss killed and seeing the true ending. Gerard and I both have that nagging feeling in us that makes us have to chase perfection.
It's true. There's something to be said about playing with someone who not only enjoys hard games, but is actively good at them. Just because we're playing co-op didn't mean this game was all that much easier mechanically. Enemies still kill you in one hit unless you've picked up a barrier. Even though the Alien Wars was designed for the Super Nintendo, the legacy of Contra is that of the arcade. Truly, this game feels designed to kill the player as often as possible and to get those quarters into machines, even though there's no slot for quarters on the Super Nintendo, or in this case, through a parsec.
On top of learning by repetition, there's a certain kind of attitude you have to adopt for completing a game like Contra 3. It all comes down to patience, and being able to play off of a partner is a great way to keep your patience intact. Since Gerard and I have known each other for so long, we both know that we can laugh at ourselves when we run out of continues. But we also know that there's this thing of being able to focus and lock in when we need to, and we can encourage each other to finish the fight, especially if the other person's the last man standing.
In response to a question about how co-op is a defining nostalgic factor of Contra 3, the game's director made a point of saying that progressing through the stages with two-player requires that you work together. And that's very true, and we've proved that. We gave each other grace because, yeah, we still died a lot. Even though this game can be beaten by speedrunners in like 20 minutes, we still had to start from the very beginning a couple of times. and that can wear down anyone. Luckily, John and I have that zen-like patience from having completed this game before together, and we were able to tap into it once again. No sword-waving flying robot is going to take our zen away.
I'd say that's the point where the self-love part comes in. The most basic way that we practiced that this time around was planning just one hard mode playthrough instead of ramping up and doing 3 like we did before. We wanted to fight the cool secret boss right away, and we already knew what we had to do, so we just dove into the deep end and started with hard. It's really nice knowing that we can still support each other and cover each other's backs, even if getting our skills back to that point took some time.
And I practiced self-love by using this game as a form of stress relief. In a very stressful year, destroying giant gross alien bugs in the second mode 7 level with my favorite weapon, the homing missile launcher, is a pressure release valve like no other. Seriously, screw those bugs in particular and every part of that fleshy creepy final level. With alien blood, literal sweat, and maybe a few tears on our SNES controllers, the alien wars became a thing of the past once again. Well, a thing of the past in the year 2636. You know what we mean. But as triumphant as the end credits is, the material rewards for making it through the gauntlet of Contra 3 are barely there. After the orgy of explosions that end Contra 3 The Alien Wars, what's left? Honestly, nothing. In my first video, we both agreed that beating the game on hard isn't really worth it. This time around, it's largely the same feeling.
While on hard the rest of the game is the same but tougher, there is one extra change to the final battle on that difficulty. The brain at the end of level 6 opens up its eye and encases itself in a spiky metal shell, adding in one final form. Instead of just flying away to safety, we had to send this armored brain suit back to hell as we escaped on a helicopter while the level was exploding around us. It was honestly pretty damn cool.
Now, I really do like this secret boss fight here. It's tough, but not too tough. A final challenge that doesn't feel too cheap at the very end. But the reward for its defeat is just a tiny little blurb of text saying that we did it. We bested Contra on the highest difficulty. I do like the little slideshow of our bros being bros, but that's all there really is there. Completing this game brings a fleeting feeling of victory. In the moment, it feels incredible to survive the non-stop hail of gunfire with the buddy. We can both finally put the controller down and exhale as we watch the credits roll. But this type of game doesn't really lend itself to completion rewards. It's still a fun time, but as anybody who's been called in for one more job knows, it's an uneasy piece. When we recompleted Contra 3 The Alien Wars, there were 9 continues. Honestly, way less than I thought there would be, but I guess we've still got it. 6
stages blasted through, from the crumbling city of stage 1 to the pulsating, stomach-churning flesh prison of the final level.
2 mode 7 stages, which can be nauseating to navigate, to be perfectly honest.
3 hours played.
And 6,438,792 bullets fired. Oh, you can trust me on that one. I counted. Now the alien wars are over, I guess it's time to hang up my guns and go into retirement. John, thanks for proving that we've still got this stuff down on lockdown.
Anytime, bud. Always down to stop an alien invasion, whether we're at a convention together or across the world from each other.
Surely couldn't imagine doing this one without you, buddy. Contra 3 is a special game, insanely difficult, yes, and really satisfying to see that end screen pop up telling us that we defeated the ultimate challenge. That said, life's too short to break yourself against this particular game unless you're trying to prove something to yourself, unlike us. This game doesn't really give anything beyond, hey, you did it, kid, great job. So, with that in mind, guys, we give this game our completionist rating of finish it.
Finish it!